Of course not. You're the biggest disgrace this family has ever had. That was what my sister Grace said to me. It all began with a single phone call. The caller was my college friend, Olivia. "Avery, did you see Grace's post?" For a moment, I had no idea what she was talking about. When was the last time I'd actually seen Grace face to face? It was probably 6 months ago, at my parents' wedding anniversary dinner. Even then, she treated me like some defective piece of furniture, and when the topic of my work came up, she sighed loudly enough for everyone to hear. Since that day, we hadn't spoken once. "I'm sorry, Olivia. What are you talking about?" I heard Olivia inhale sharply on the other end of the line. An awkward silence followed. That silence turned the uneasy feeling in my chest into certainty. "Instagram? Check it out. My feed is full of her right now." I did as she said and picked up my phone. I searched Olivia's name, went through her list of liked posts, and there it was. A breathtaking photo. The location was a luxury winery in Napa Valley. In the picture, Grace was smiling radiantly, leaning close to the man beside her. Her fiancé, Ethan. He was a young investment banker who had become a vice president at an unusually early age. And my parents' favorite. The photo had over 500 likes and countless congratulatory comments. And in the caption it said, "2 weeks until the best day of my life. A $750,000 dream wedding with the love of my life, Ethan, and 152 amazing guests." 152. My finger froze over that number. As I scrolled, a list of tagged guests appeared. My parents, uncles, aunts, cousins I hadn't seen in years. Grace's friends, Ethan's colleagues. My name was the only one missing. I could feel the blood drain from my face. In the back of my mind, I began calculating calmly. $750,000. I thanked Olivia and ended the call, then tapped Grace's number with trembling fingers. After 3 rings, I heard her bright but faintly condescending voice. "Avery, long time no talk. What do you want?" "Grace, you're getting married. Congratulations." I tried my best to sound calm. To keep my voice from shaking, I bit down hard on my back teeth. "Yes, that's right. Isn't it amazing? It's going to be the biggest wedding in San Francisco this year. It's even going to be featured in a magazine." Her tone was full of pride. I could tell she didn't care about how I might feel at all. "Why didn't you tell me? You invited 152 people?" At last, I got to the point. On the other end of the line, I heard Grace giggle softly. That laugh was cruel enough to tear my heart to pieces. Then she said it, as if stating an obvious fact. "Of course not. You're the biggest disgrace this family has ever had." "Disgrace? Me?" I fought to steady my trembling voice and spoke back. "How dare you say that, Grace? Who do you think made it possible for you to keep living in the Pacific Heights house? Who paid for your expensive college tuition?" Grace chuckled again, as if she found my words utterly ridiculous. That laugh carried the same cruel indifference as before. "Oh, that's a bit tacky to bring up, Avery. That was simply your way of making amends for dishonoring our family, wasn't it? It's only natural that you devote yourself to us. Did you really expect gratitude? Duty, atonement." Those words stabbed into my heart like sharp pieces of glass. To them, all my years of support held no trace of love or family affection. There was nothing more to say. "I see." That was all I managed to whisper before ending the call, not waiting for Grace to say another word. After hanging up, I couldn't move from the sofa for a long while. I wasn't one of the guests. What crushed me even more than the fact itself was the unshakable certainty that my parents must have known about the guest list. They didn't stop Grace's cruel decision. If anything, they silently accepted it. They chose appearances, pride, and Grace's favor over me, their own daughter. That silence spoke louder than any words, telling me I was no longer needed in this family. Looking back, maybe I was a fool. But deep down, I had still believed. Believed that some trace of family bond must remain. That someday they would acknowledge the way I live, the efforts I have made. That perhaps, one day, I might once again see the same smile my father showed me when I was accepted into medical school. What I had given them all those years wasn't just financial support. It had been my final hope, my outstretched hand for reconciliation. And Grace, with the silent approval of our parents, crushed all of it with a single sentence. What could possibly drive them that far? My family, the Bennett family, was well known in San Francisco. My grandfather had built his fortune in finance, and my father inherited it. They called themselves Old Money, taking absolute pride in their lineage and tradition. In their world, worth was determined by birth. Respectable professions were lawyers, doctors, and financiers. Everything else was considered beneath them. I had worked desperately to live up to their expectations, to be the perfect daughter, the brilliant sister. I still remember vividly the night I was accepted into the medical program at a prestigious university. My parents hosted a grand party at our mansion in Pacific Heights, inviting San Francisco's social elites to celebrate it. The crystal chandeliers sparkled brilliantly, and the sound of a string quartet filled the air as I shyly followed my father's introductions from guest to guest. When he raised his glass for a speech, the room fell silent. He looked at me with pride, his voice trembling slightly as he said, "Allow me to introduce my daughter, Avery. She has added a new and glorious chapter to the history of the Bennett family. She is the greatest masterpiece in my life." As the guests applauded warmly, I saw my father discreetly wipe away a tear. At that moment, his eyes held no calculation, no vanity, only pure love and pride. Away from the noise of the party, on the terrace, my mother gently took both my hands in hers. "Avery, you are our hope. Because of you, the Bennett family will always be secure." Her voice was endlessly kind, and the warmth that flowed from her fingertips told me that all my effort had finally been rewarded. And then there was Grace, still in her teens. She stared at my brand new dress with admiration and looked up at me with sparkling eyes. "Congratulations, Avery. You're really the best in the world. I'm so proud of you." That pure admiration, that unclouded smile, every bit of it must have been real. Yes, that night, I was truly the center of my family. I was loved, expected to shine, and represented a brilliant future, the pride of the Bennett family. That sweet, vivid memory became the spell that bound me for years to come, and at the same time, the fragile thread of hope I could never let go of. I kept believing foolishly that one day I might earn back those smiles they once showed me. But as I studied medicine, my heart began to drift elsewhere. How could I explain complex medical information in a way that patients and their families could truly understand? While searching for that answer, I discovered the world of visual technology. When I saw a single CG video of a complicated medical procedure give people more hope than any words ever could, I knew. More than uncovering the mysteries of the human body, I was drawn to the power of images that could move people's hearts directly. Between lectures, I began teaching myself video editing and started taking on small projects. It was the first path I had ever found for myself, one that no one had forced upon me. One day, as graduation approached, I stood before my parents and Grace and made the biggest decision of my life. I'm not going to be a doctor. I'm going to start my own company, a video technology business. I saw the color drain from my father's face. My mother looked at me as if I were something filthy. And Grace smiled triumphantly. "What nonsense are you talking about? Do you really think a daughter of the Bennett family would start some shady business like that?" My father's roar echoed across the marble floor. "Avery, are you out of your mind? That kind of vulgar work. How could we ever introduce you to our friends?" Grace chimed in, adding insult to injury. From that day on, I became invisible within my family. They never acknowledged my success. Even when my company took off and I was named in Forbes 30 Under 30, not a single word of congratulations came from them. To them, I was nothing more than a disgrace who had stained the proud legacy of the Bennett family. And yet, somewhere deep down, I still held on to hope. If I succeeded on this new path, maybe they would finally acknowledge me one day. It was on a rainy afternoon when my company had just begun to flourish that I saw him through the glass wall of the reception area. My father, standing there without an appointment. For a moment, I couldn't believe my eyes. Since the last time I had seen him, he looked as though he had aged 10 years. The expensive suit he always kept perfectly pressed was deeply wrinkled and pitifully worn. "Dad, what's wrong?" In my minimalist office, his presence felt terribly out of place. He couldn't meet my eyes, as if enduring the discomfort of being in the very fortress I had built for myself. "There's been a bit of a cash flow problem," he muttered, staring at a spot on the floor. He went on mumbling to himself about the economy, about being betrayed by longtime business partners, excuses whispered to no one in particular. The man who once called me the greatest masterpiece in my life was nowhere to be found. After he finished his stream of justifications, he finally glanced at me. In his eyes, I saw something I had never seen before. Desperation. "Just for a while," he said quietly. "Until things stabilize with the company, could you help us financially?" The moment those words left his mouth, alarms blared in my head. But the pathetic slump of his shoulders dulled my reason. Those strong arms that once held me proudly on that night long ago were gone. After a long silence, I barely managed to speak. "All right." I opened my laptop and transferred the amount he requested. It was a sum far beyond anything he could have imagined back when he had sneered at my work as some shady business. With a single click, the screen displayed "transfer complete." "That helps," was all he said before walking out of my office without once looking back. No words of thanks, no acknowledgement of his daughter's success. Of course not. His company was failing, and even the cost of maintaining their mansion in Pacific Heights had quietly fallen on my shoulders. I was also the one who had paid Grace's university tuition, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Without that money, Grace might have never met someone like Ethan, the elite fiancé she was going to marry. I slowly opened my eyes on the sofa. Outside the window, the world was already wrapped in darkness. Ethan was a young and promising man, but no matter how much he earned, could he really afford to pay for a ceremony of this scale, one extravagant enough to satisfy the Bennett's vanity, entirely on his own? The answer was obvious. My father had planned to finance the massive wedding with the very money I had been sending to support the family. They intended to stage one daughter's perfect day and preserve the family's social standing, using the earnings of the disgrace they had cast out. That was their blueprint. They were building their bright, happy future on the foundation of my support. Of course, that foundation held no place for me. I existed only to be drained, used and discarded. The last trace of warmth in my heart flickered out, replaced by something cold and silent, like ice forming deep within me. It wasn't anger. It was something harder, sharper, far more precise. I didn't know how long I sat there in the darkened living room. Disgrace. I repeated that word in my mind again and again. Grace's cruel laughter echoed in my memory. My parents' silence, which had allowed it. All the love and support I had given them for years had meant nothing. It was merely their assumed right. The hand of reconciliation I had offered them had been trampled. Enough. I stood up quietly and walked toward my study. I couldn't afford to be emotional. This was business. Nothing more than reclaiming funds from a failed investment. I repeated that to myself. When I opened my laptop, the first thing that appeared was the dashboard of my company. Dozens of projects were running in real time. The world they had once sneered at. The empire I had built from nothing. Those lines of numbers on the screen felt like my strongest allies. Retribution would come. Quietly and swiftly. The first call was to my private banker. "Hello, this is Avery Bennett. I need you to confirm something. There's an account held jointly under my name and my father's, Benjamin Bennett. Please remove my name immediately and suspend all automatic transfers. Yes, all of them. The reason? Let's just say, portfolio restructuring." Next, I called the credit card company Grace used. "May I speak with the account manager, please? Hello, this is Avery. I'd like to terminate the card ending in 7758, effective today." "Yes, immediately. The reason? No, the card isn't lost. It's at the request of the account holder." My fingers on the keyboard were steady. Surprisingly steady. Next came the main event, the $750,000 dream wedding. I called a friend of mine, a seasoned event planner who knew both the glittering and shadowed sides of San Francisco's high society. "Lily, sorry for the late call. I need you to look into something urgently. The Vineyard Estate in Napa Valley. Can you check its reservation status for 2 weeks from now?" Lily immediately understood the weight in my voice. "Of course, Avery. Yes, that date is fully booked under the Bennett family's name. The deposit's been paid, but the balance hasn't. Why do you ask?" "That reservation, I'm the one who arranged it." That was a lie, but I was certain my father had planned to pay for it using the very money I had been sending them for years. "Yes, cancel it. I'll cover the penalty myself." "Avery, did something happen?" "Yes, but don't worry. Think of it as a necessary cost reduction." The venue wasn't the only thing. The catering was from the most prestigious French restaurant in the city. The floral arrangements were by the most sought-after artist in San Francisco. Someone brides waited months to book. Every element of that opulent wedding had been secured through two currencies: my father's flaunted Bennett family name and the unspoken assurance of my wealth behind it. They called me a disgrace, yet never hesitated to depend on my money. This ugly arrangement, this hypocrisy, was the true face of their $750,000 dream wedding. I instructed Lily to proceed calmly with all cancellations. "I'll pay any penalties, of course," I added. It was the cost of destruction, and the most valuable investment I could make to reclaim my freedom. And then the final strike, the coldest move I would ever make to restore my dignity. I remembered something from a dinner a few weeks earlier with Olivia and her brother Noah. That night, over glasses of wine, Noah had lamented about a heartbroken friend. "Avery, you won't believe it. My buddy Lucas got completely scammed by this awful woman. Her name's Grace Bennett." I could still remember how the air at the table froze the moment he said that name. Olivia shot me a panicked look, but I kept my composure and let Noah continue. "She was seeing him while hiding the fact that she has a fiancé. It's pathetic." According to Noah, the heartbroken Lucas had shown him every sweet message Grace had sent, and all the photos of them being intimate in a flurry of anger and sorrow. At that time, I felt only a quiet fury at my sister's bottomless narcissism and dishonesty. I never imagined it would become the trump card for my revenge. I called Olivia. "Olivia, sorry to call so late." When she answered, I began calmly. "Do you remember the thing your brother mentioned about his friend Lucas? The evidence he has is exactly what I need now." Olivia inhaled sharply for a moment, but she must have sensed the unshakable resolve in my voice. Without hesitation, she replied, "All right, Avery, I'll contact Noah right away. Lucas will want the truth to come out for his own honor." A few minutes later, the evidence started arriving on my phone from Olivia. It portrayed the betrayal far more vividly than I had imagined. Photos of Grace smiling with what should have been Ethan's Cartier bracelet looped around the wrist of a young man named Lucas, and screenshots of messages that read, "My future with Ethan is secure but boring. The thrilling time with you is everything to me." I immediately created a fake social account and uploaded all of that data at once. Then, with cold fingertips, I tagged Ethan himself, his parents and sisters, and each of the wedding's primary guests, one by one, with perfect accuracy. When I was done, I simply lifted my fingers from the keyboard. By then, the sky outside had begun to pale slightly. I had not ignited a blaze of vengeance. I had merely, quietly lit the fuse on the ugly truths they'd been hiding. I drank a glass of cold water in one go. Strangely, my heart was calm. This wasn't revenge. It was a settlement. I was reclaiming everything I had ever given my family: love, respect, money, for myself. The bomb of truth I had dropped from that anonymous account spread through San Francisco's tight social circles faster than I ever imagined. All I had done was quietly light the fuse. After that, the powder keg of vanity they had spent years constructing exploded on its own. The next afternoon, my phone rang. The caller ID showed my father. I pressed the answer button quietly. On the other end, chaos reigned. "Avery?" My father's voice, twisted with anger and confusion, hit my ears like a blow. "What the hell is going on? I just got a call from the venue. The reservation's been canceled. The catering, the flowers, everything. The entire $750,000 wedding is gone. Did you do this?" Accusations fired in rapid succession. In the background, I could faintly hear Grace's shrill crying and my mother's voice shouting something unintelligible. I took a deep, steady breath, letting their panic wash over me like background noise. Then, in a flat, emotionless voice, I replied, "I didn't cancel anything." Silence. I could tell he was at a loss for words. I continued, slowly and deliberately. "I simply ended all financial support to the Bennett family as of yesterday. Naturally, when payments stop, all contracts become void. That's all there is to it." It was the cruel truth. I hadn't destroyed anything directly. I had only cut off the flow of money. And the fragile palace they had built upon that foundation collapsed entirely on its own. "What?" My father's voice trailed off, stunned. Behind him, Grace's crying grew louder. "My life is ruined," she screamed, sobbing like a child. Then the voice on the line shifted. It was my mother. The anger that had filled my mother's voice moments ago was gone. In its place came a pitiful, pleading tone, almost groveling. "Avery, Please forgive us. You were the one person we should have invited first. We were so foolish. Please, I'm begging you. Can't you undo the cancellations? Forgiveness. How hollow that word sounded. The same people who had despised me and treated me as if I didn't exist were bowing before me. I burned their wretched image into my memory and spoke clearly, calmly, delivering my final words. I'm afraid there's nothing I can do. Then, slowly, I dealt the final blow. You know, don't you? I'm the family's greatest disgrace. On the other end of the line, I heard Grace gasp. A moment later, that gasp turned into a scream. I ended the call before she finished. The words, "call ended," glowed on my phone screen. I stared at them quietly, as if reading the final line of a long novel. Still seated on the sofa, I opened my contact list with familiar ease. Father, Benjamin Bennett. I pressed and held his name, then tapped block and delete without hesitation. Mother. And finally, Grace. When I erased their numbers, I felt nothing. They were no longer my family. One by one, I cut every thread that connected me to them. Social media, email, everything. This wasn't just an ending. It was a beginning. I was reclaiming my life, my savings that they had drained, and more importantly, my dignity, which had been warped for so long by their values. Not a single dollar I earned from now on would ever be spent for them. Not a single second of my time or energy would ever again be wasted on their behalf. My life, from this very moment, is truly my own. And in the end, I'm not the one who has become the family's disgrace. It is Grace, the perfect daughter, the radiant bride-to-be with a brilliant future. Her mask was ripped away, revealing a shallow, deceitful woman who had betrayed her fiancé. Her relationship with Ethan collapsed before the wedding could even take place. The engagement was broken. Months have passed since the day their wedding collapsed. San Francisco's skyline is as beautiful as ever, but since that storm of a day, my world has taken on an entirely different hue. The fall of the Bennett family came faster than I could have ever imagined. Grace's broken engagement destroyed my father's reputation, and with my financial support gone, his company teetered on the edge of bankruptcy. Eventually, my parents sold the grand Pacific Heights mansion that had once been their symbol of pride and prestige. I heard they moved somewhere else, but I don't know where to, and I don't care. As for Grace, who had lost everything, she was forced for the first time in her life to survive on her own. Once, I happened to see her working at a supermarket. She was on her knees, desperately wiping up spilled juice from the floor. There was no trace of her former radiance. When our eyes met, hers were filled with shock and then with deep humiliation. But my heart didn't waver. There was no triumph, no pity, only a quiet emptiness. Without a word, I turned away and disappeared from her world for good. Did I take everything from them? No. I had only taken back what was mine, what I had given them for so long. Now, beside me stands a partner who truly understands and supports the life I've chosen. My company is filled with people who trust and respect me. They are my new family, the family's disgrace. That phrase, which once bound me, no longer holds any power. Today, I live my life for no one but myself, and my story has only just begun.